Hello everyone. In this course, my goal is to teach you the essentials of React.js with a focus on creating web applications. In an ideal world, you can learn all about JavaScript and web development. Before you dive into React.js, unfortunately we live in a not perfect world, so chomping down on all of JavaScript before React will just make you bleed hard. If you already have some experience with JavaScript, all you need to learn before React.js is just the JavaScript features you will actually use to develop React application. One of the biggest issues I had when I started learning React.js was that I couldn't read the code. It was very frustrating. I had many years of experience writing JavaScript, but I was not aware of the modern JavaScript trends and new syntax. React.js fully embraces the ES6, the ECMA6 syntax. So once you learn and understand the ES6 syntax, your life as a React.js and JavaScript developer will change because it will be a lot easier to read and write React.js code. If you don't know what is ES6, ES6 is a standard implemented by JavaScript. ES6 ECMA script 2015 is the new JavaScript standard that introduces new features in JavaScript. Most of the features are syntactic sugars and are semantically equivalent to the strict mode in ES5. However, these new features make the code concise and less error prone. We will be using ES6 wherever possible. While this is not a lesson that covers all aspects of ES6, I'm going to cover many in subsequent lessons. We would use them while learning React.js. And believe me when I say that React.js is much more fun to understand and work with when you harness the power of ES6. Needless to say that if you're already familiar with ES6, this might seem redundant to you. I compiled in a screencast that top 10 ES6 features I think are important to grasp to make your life easier as React developer. The topic we are going to cover in the ES6 are let, var, and const. Let and const are new keyword in ES6. We already know about the var anyway. So they are actually for declaring variables. Const is more powerful than var. Yeah, you obviously use the var, but now we're talking about the const. Once used, the variable can't be reassigned. In other words, it's an immutable variable except when it used with objects. Let can be reassigned and take new value. It creates a mutable variable. Now, the arrow functions. The arrow function is really awesome and makes your code more readable, more structured, and look like modern code. Now, destructing assignments. Destruction makes the assignments of the values of an array or object to the new variable easier. Then, spread operator. We can use the spread parameter to get the values of the array instead of using a for loop or any other method. Rest parameters. The rest parameters are used to get the arguments of an array and return a new array. Template literals. Template literals or template strings are pretty cool. We don't have to use the plus operator to concatenate strings or when we want to use a variable inside a string. Map function or filter function. Classes or subclasses. Classes are the core of object-oriented programming, OOP. They make your code more secure and encapsulated. Using classes gives your code a nice structure and keeps it oriented. ES6 module system. Using import and export in your JavaScript application makes it more powerful than allow you to create separate and reusable components. Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're gonna set up the environment of React in our system. So first of all, what we need to do, React doesn't work if we don't have the Node.js in our system. Generally, we don't use Node.js programming in the React because Node.js is a different thing and React is a different thing. Anyhow, if you need, you can combine the Node.js and the React technology to make something better. But in this scenario, we just need to install the Node.js to set up this, because Node.js gives us the npm library. So the npm package manager, and that package manager is necessary for any kind of JavaScript libraries. Like the React is ultimately a JavaScript library, so we would install and set up the React using the npm. npm is here in the Node.js. npm means Node.js package manager. It supports a lot of libraries. Even if you're working on Angular, if you're working on the Vue.js or any other library of the JS, you should use the Node.js, the package manager, the npm for those things. So first of all, there are two versions. The latest features recommended for most users. I'm going with the recommended for most users. We may be using the current one or the legacy one, but because what we need is the package manager, so package manager would work on both. So I should use the recommendation for the most of users. I need to click on the download button, and it's gonna download in my system, and it can take a few seconds, as you can see. Once it completes the downloading, we can go to the next step, means installing the Node.js. And then so far so good, we would be able to set up the actually React in our system. So Node.js in our system now I can click on that, just setting up some final settings. Come on, it's just about to come here in the system. Now need to click here to the node, whatever version we've done. We need to install the Node.js. Okay, it's coming here, preparing to install, and now it is setting up. The setup wizard will install Node.js on your computer. I'm clicking next. Yes, whatever it is, I have to agree with the license agreements. Anyway, just click on the next button. Okay, now I'm installing it. And what more I need? The Node.js runtime. Okay, the Node npm package manager, that is very necessary, and the online documentation shortcuts and add to path. These things are good. I'm just clicking on the next button and the install button, and now Node.js is about to install in my system. It can take a few minutes, so you can have a coffee or you can wait for the Node.js. It's now copying new files and it's taking a little time. I absolutely cut the initiating of the setup because it was taking some time and it was not necessary. So I actually initiated the setup, but the timing, which was just like waiting, I cut it from the video. Now here Node.js is successfully installed in my system. Now I can click on the finish button. Okay, once I click on the finish button, now I have the Node.js, and now the second important thing we need is the Visual Studio Code. So you need to click on the Visual Studio Code and you need to click here to download that. It's the best VCC, the best IDE by now, so you can download that and you would find it love, because I like that very much. Now download for Windows, I want this table build. If you're using the Mac and any other setup, you can download according to your recommendation or the requirements. Okay, now the Visual Studio Code in action. Okay, I've got it here too. So you just need to install that too. And I'm not going to install that because I have this in my system. So I'm just going to escape it. I was just showing that we need that too. Anyway, the second important thing is to open the Visual Studio Code. To install the React, first of all, we need to go to the Visual Studio Code. So now we are here. We have already opened the related folder, and in this folder I'm gonna perform all the actions. I'm going here and I'm going to the terminal, and there I'm gonna install the React. The very first thing I need to write is npm, because I'm using the npm, the node package manager, to install -g. The meaning of -g is I'm doing something globally. Okay, That means I'm not gonna install the React in a specific folder which named React. I'm installing the React globally. So this is -g. npm is too wide and it has a lot of libraries as we discussed, and the install is the keyword of the npm to install something. Now the -g, the -g is also the global sign, and it indicates that we are installing globally. It's also the part of the npm. And now we are installing the React from the npm package manager. Now create React app. I did a little mistake. This should be like that. Create React app. Okay, now I need to press line break and then I need to wait a little till it will be downloaded. Okay, so a complete log. Oh, there is something wrong we've got. I can see that the problem is this is the problem related to network connectivity. That means I'm having some network issue. Let me fix that. Now let me try again. I've fixed this setup. Okay, now npm install -g, the -g, create React app, and okay, now it's actually started downloading the React. Okay, it can take a few minutes, so all we need is to sit here and wait for a while unless it gets installed completely. Then we would be checking if we've installed it correctly. So okay, it's extracting different kind of files, like you can see that, and it's getting installed in the specific folder. Here you can see that in the app data roaming etc. Okay, now we have successfully installed the React application. Now this is the time to check that. I'm writing create React app version. The double hyphen and the version is the key to check the version of the React. The version checking means it's installed ultimately. It is 3.0.1. That means we have the React application installed in our system, so everything is fine by now. In the next video we would be actually creating the very first basic application. Then we would talk about a lot of things. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in a previous video we talked about how we can install and set up the environment for the React. So we did a lot of things, like we talked about the Visual Studio Code, and also we set it up the Node.js. So now we can access the npm. So now this is the time to work on the React. Okay, to create a project in React can be very easy and also tricky. So there are many ways. We're going to talk about the very simple and the first way, so you would understand how you can get your very first application. So it starts with the terminal. And yeah, one more thing I need to tell you, that the terminal would be very important throughout this course, because we're gonna create a lot of things from the terminal in the React. So first thing first, you need to write the npx. Now absolutely, I know you want to know what is npx. So we discussed about the npm already. Now what the npx is actually the package runner which comes along with the npx 5.2. And if we want to check the version of our npm, so this is 6.9. So from the 5.2 till now the npx is working. Anyways, I'm gonna use the npx and I'm gonna add the create React app. This is what we used to install this. And now we need to write the name of the application. The app name we're going to decide here. Anyway, why we are writing the same thing we used to install the React? We are not using something like npm install. Okay, the npm install is the key command for the npm to install something. Now we are not installing, we are running a package, create React app. And now the name of the application can be anything like Learn React or Master React. And line break, and now it's gonna create the application right here. Create React app. Okay, now creating a new React app in this specific folder. You can see that now it's installing packages, and they're clarifying that this might take a couple of minutes because they're installing React, React DOM, and React scripts in this folder, the master React. So now they are actually, installing everything we need, so it can take a little while. So no problem, just tick and wait to get it completed. Now the master React folder has a lot of many folders and the files, and absolutely here you can see that in the terminal we did a lot of things, a lot of coding edit here. We was here installing React domain, React script, but now you can see that the core.js in etc, these are all the things have installed. Absolutely, we've paused the video, so because of the paused feature we was not able to see how these things came here, but nothing was typical. I was just waited and it got completed, and now everything is installed in my system. Success created master React at this address. Inside the directory you can run several commands like npm start, npm run build, npm test, npm run eject, or we suggest that you might begin by typing cd master React npm start. Happy hacking. Okay, now they're even recommending what to do and when, so now let's do that. Yeah, we suggest that you begin by typing. Absolutely, we need to look at this suggestion. So first of all, we need to go in this master React. In the address we are at the React, we need to go inside the master React. So I'm typing cd. The cd is the command of the cmd, the DOS. It's the DOS command, and using the cd we actually get access to the subdirectory. So the master React is a subdirectory of the React. So I'm going to the master React directory. Okay, now you can see that official REACT master React. Now we are inside this directory. Now what more we can do, we can run the npm start. Actually we are initializing the npm by now. Run, and now it's gonna ask a few things like here master React 10.1.0 start, npm script start etc. So it can take a little while. Okay, now the node server is running. I need to click on the allow access, and once I click there, okay, you would see some new things. Now here, if I go a little up, we was here run React scripts starting the development server compiled successfully. You can now view master React in the browser. Local HTTP localhost and 3000 on your network HTTP 192.168.0.105.3000. Note that the development build is not optimized to create a production build. You use npm run build. We are not gonna do that by now. We just need to view what we've created, and once I click here I would see in a browser something like this. Wow, we just did a few commands and this beautiful page is here. We even can see how it looks. If I go here and if I just click on the more tools and I click on the developer tools, and you're gonna see things like when I click on the elements, you're gonna see these are the things. This HTML is a file as a template. If you open it directly in your browser, you will see an empty page. Absolutely, you can add web fonts, meta tags, and etc. Everything can be added here as they're recommending. They're actually telling us whatever we need to do in the next step. This is the benefit of the framework, the library actually. So here the head tag, everything is by default created. So now I need to, if I click here, I would be redirected to the React.js website, but I'm not gonna do that. Here they're telling that edit src/app.js and save to reload. One more interesting thing, that when you edit the code of the React in the code panel, you even do not need to refresh the page. It would be automatically refreshed. I'm going to the code panel. So here is a code panel, and in the project area you can see that the src folder is there, which was recommended for us to visit. Anyways, there are many other folders, but by now I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to go to the src, and it was recommended that I need to go to the app.js to edit that thing. Here you can see that I needed to click there, and I'm now in the app.js, and all I need is to edit this area, and I'm adding my name here, for example Shazib Kamal, and I'm saving that. And the second important thing I need to do is to go back to the browser, and here you can see that without even refreshing I've got that here. But one thing I needed to do, which I did, I saved the page. Now I'm going to show you both together so you would understand it in a more better understanding. I'm writing here, I'm deleting that, and I'm doing nothing. I'm just pressing the Control S, or I can try this one so you would understand it in a better way. Click on the save button. Now see here, you can see that it's reloaded automatically. We didn't save it, or we didn't reload that, and we've got the Shazib. We just only saved that actually. So now I can type Kamal and save that, and you would see I'm here, but this automatically updated. Anyway, this is how it works. I was just telling you a few facts. Anyway, the next step we're going to talk is, okay, we edited this file, but how it worked, we would talk about that later. But first of all, we need to understand this detailed project, the folder structure. So we're going to do that in the next lecture. Till that, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video we're going to talk about the folder structure we've got in the master React folder. You can see we've got a few files and a few folders, actually 3 folders and 4 files precisely. It's using the gitignore. Absolutely, we're going to talk about the gitignore too. And there are 2 more things, the package lock.json and the package.json and the readme file. And there are 3 folders, the node modules, the public, and the src. So let's start with the package.json. If I click on the package.json, it actually maintains the package. For example, the file name, the version, its private dependencies we are using is React DOM, and the script dependencies are, a kind of the things we are applying, like we are using the React, we are using the React DOM, and we are using the React scripts dependency. And the scripts is actually we design it how we call different actions. For example, to start the script, we need to type the React script starts. To build it, React scripts build. To test it, React scripts test. To eject it, React scripts eject. So we're going to talk about the scripts later. Then the ESLint config extend React app. ESLint is something different anyway. The browser list, the development versions, etc. So this is the package, a kind of package thing. Then the readme, and we are going to the node modules. So whatever we're going to use in this React project is actually coming from this folder. Different kind of things you can find here. It is not very important to visit even, but just to show you that color strings, camel case, and different features of the React. Actually, the whole React application is inside this node modules. This is the folder we've got using the npm, and this is why you can see that it is the node module, because we got it from the node package manager, the npm. So all the modules of the React JS is inside this folder. Now the public folder, if I click here, there are the favicon, which is just a favicon, which can be placed at the top of the browser or the top of the web application in the header title. Anyway, then this is the app.json. In the public, this is the index.html and the manifest.json. The manifest is not something very important for us, just a manifestation of the file. Then we're going to the index.html. You can see that this is the only HTML file throughout the whole package, and we're not even going to make any other file. What is this file? Actually, to the browser, this file would be open, and the React is a single page application, SPA. So this main file would behave like that single page site. Okay, so this is the main file which would be open in the browser. You can add the links, like you can see that the links here, the scripts, even if you want to add the script or different things. And here is the div id root. This div id root is actually contains the data which is coming from the from different JavaScript files of the React. So we are importing things from different files to this index.html. So ultimately this file would be on a browser, and this file would contain the elements. For example, if I go here, I updated this file, I updated and I've added the Shazib Kamal in this file. So this file is not going to the browser. This file is lending to this page, the index.html, and this page is bringing data to the internet. So this app.js, how actually this page is sending, the app.js sending data to this index.html file. Now this is the point. To understand that, how this file is getting the things or the data and the div id root, how this is workable, we need to go to the src folder, and there is another important file which is index.js. The index.js and index.html file has a link between them. The index.html file is actually the entry point of the application. Now we actually add every file to this index.js file, like this app.js. So here you can see that there is something we are adding in the React DOM render. We are going to talk about these things, but you can see that this is something APP, okay, and this is app.js. If the file name would be different, here we would use something different, like for example the file name is instead of the APP, if it is web.js, so there we would see web. And how it is there, because we are importing the data. You can see that importing app from app. This is the file address. We're going to talk how we can actually import things, but just showing you. And we are importing things here, and you can see that document.getElement by id root. So we are selecting the root, and this index.js, if I go to the index.html file, it is that index file is connected to this file. So actually that file, the index.js, where is that file? Here it is. This index.js file is picking the stuff and different kind of things it's importing, and it's sending the data to the, you can see that the document.getElement.id by id root. This is a very basic JavaScript command. So by selecting this root, the div which has the id as root is getting data from the index.js, and index.js is sending what? It's sending the APP data, the app.js files data. This is the APP function which was called there, and it has the new update which has Shazib Kamal. Now this is how it works, and this is the file structure. There is the index.s, the css file too, which you can use to add some css, and already it's being used. You can see that the ubuntu and different things, the font family, the margin and etc, it's already being used, and we was able to see these things in a browser. Anyway, there is a logo file, the logo.svg. it was used in a center, and it was what things which was moving, the React logo, the blue logo, this was that logo. Anyways, I think you now got the folder structure, and now all we need is to talk what is this and app.js. Anyways, we didn't talk about this src folder. So this app.js is actually the single component, okay. The app.test.js is nothing, you can even delete that, but just leave that anyway, we're not going to even use that. So the app.js is the component file, and we would have many other component file like the app.js, and this is the css of this app.js file. This app.css file is the css file of this component, the app component. one more thing, we need to know that React JS is completely component based, not a page based. Okay, for example, if you want to make a contact us page or the about us page, you're not going to make a page, you're going to make a component. And absolutely, you're not going to make the HTML file, you're going to make the contactus.js file along with the contactus.css file, and whatever you want to add in those files, you would add that, and then through the router we are going to use that. So later we're going to learn more and more, so till then stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this lecture we're going to talk about the app.js mainly. We discussed about the structure, we discussed what part did what and does what and will do what. Anyway, I'm now talking about the app.js. So it has a lot of parts. If let's just talk about the index.js again. It's actually importing things and then rendering things. By now we have nothing more than that, just the app. So we're rendering the app. But if we go to the app.js, here you can see that many things available, almost 28 lines of code we can see here, or 26 lines because there are 2 plain spaces. Anyway, I'm saving it now. It starts from importing. Okay, this app.js is a simple file which has the React imported. So after this importing of React, it's now working. Now you must be asking that from where we are importing the React. So absolutely, we're importing things from the node modules. So there is no hidden sign that from where we are picking the data and how this is happening anyway. Then the second thing after this React, which we are getting imported from the node modules, the second thing is the logo, which is coming from the logo.svg. Okay, so if we go to this svg file, this is getting picked and it is coming here. So if you want to apply something like that, you just need to follow this structure. Anyway, if you notice one thing here, we are using the .svg format, but in some ways you would notice that, for example, here we won't use that. Anyway, I'll tell you, no problem. The third thing is we are importing the app.css. Okay, but you can see that one dot and a slash, that means actually we are importing it from the same folder. This is the app.js and this is the app.css and this is the logo.svg. So we are using a period and a slash. So that means we are actually calling something from the same component. Anyway, then we are making a function called app, and then we are exporting the default app. What is the mean of the exporting? When we would have multiple items, we won't export every single component as the default, because it is the default one. This is the main app.js, like the home page or something. So this is the default component we are exporting. This function is not just a function, it's a component. So anyway, I'm gonna delete that and I'm gonna make things again. But in the function, you should notice one more thing, that there is a return, and return has 2 parentheses. There is one more way we can choose, but by now we are choosing this way. Anyway, the third thing you would notice inside the coding, it's not a coding, it's the a kind of texting. If you notice, this is ultimately a .js file. Then how the HTML inside has no double quotes. If you want to write HTML inside any programming language, you use this way. I'm just giving you an example like that. Okay, so this is the way to write the HTML coding, but this is not a right way, because I'm gonna delete that. This is ultimately the right way to write it, because it is not the string, because HTML considered to be string for the coding. Okay, so this is not the strings, but this is neither the HTML. This is the JSX. So that's pretty cool. Okay, we are going to talk about the JSX later too, because it's important. There are some codes, even the JSX follows. If you notice here, to add the logo, we didn't here directly added something like here the linking or the path. We just added a variable. This is a kind of variable. This is the kind of variable we've used here. We saved this logo.svg inside this logo variable, and by using the curly braces inside the JSX, we can even write the complete JavaScript. If you even want to add some arithmetic operations, you can do by this. We're going to talk about the JSX later, but by now I'm going to delete all this so you would understand how you can make one for your own. I'm first of all going to import the React from React, and then here I need to add the semicolon. I was working on a language where I didn't need to use the semicolon. I was working on a Go language actually previously, so it is kind of confusing because many different languages has different ways. Anyways, I'm gonna go down and I'm saving it up. Okay, and you can see that it's a little dull. Because why it's dull? Because we declared the React, but we are not using, we still not using that, so it is just the sign that we didn't use it. It's dull in the writing. Anyway, what more we need to import? Previously the logo was also imported, but I do not need that logo to be imported because I'm not going to use that logo anymore. This SVG, I'm closing that. Okay, the third thing which was imported previously was the app.css file, this one. But are we gonna use that by now, or by adding some new things or anything? I'm not gonna use that by now, but if I would, I will absolutely tell you. So we ultimately even do not need to write the second import, the app.css. I'm going to make the function, and then here the function name can be anything. I'm writing by now the app and the parentheses and the curly braces, and I'm going inside this function and I'm writing something like, first of all, I'm writing what I want to return. I want to return. I'm going inside the return by now, and here I'm writing the JSX. JSX is much similar to the HTML, but it is not, because HTML requires the features, and those features are something like using the HTML in the double quotes or the single quotes and make it as a string, but the JSX is not a string. I'm writing here, this is JSX. We're going to talk about the JSX later, but by now I'm just placing it like that. And the next important thing I need to do is to go bottom. After this function, I'm going to export the function. This is very important. I'm going to export default app. Saving it. Now I'm going to export that function, and also I'm declaring it as default function. Okay, now I do not need the app.css by now. Okay, now I'm going to the index.js. Now here in the index.js there are a few things which are already imported. For example, the React, we absolutely here we need to add the React to, we need to import that, because of this many things like the React DOM and things would be able to survive. Anyway, here for the React DOM we also have the React DOM itself, React DOM from React-DOM, and here we're using the React DOM.render. Anyway, we are also, one more thing, we are also importing this thing, the app. Okay, so if you want to connect this app.js with the index.js, you first need to export it from here as we did, and then we need to import it in the index.js as it happens in line number 4. Import app from ./app. This is the app, and here when we're calling some JS stuff, we do not need to mention the .js because it's ultimately based on .js. So if you do not mention the .js, that means you're calling some JS application or the JS script. But if you're calling some other things like the index or anything, so you need to call the .css or etc, like logo.svg as example. Anyway, here we're importing. What is the meaning of that? Service worker. Service worker is something we didn't talk about yet. We will talk about the services later, but import all. We are importing everything here. We're not only importing the app or the React, I mean these variables. We're not importing only the variables, we're importing everything from the service worker. The service is something like we're adding some external features like database connectivity, something like that. So for those purposes we use the services. We will talk about that later anyway. Okay, here we're telling that render the app in the document.getElement.byId root. So here in index.html there is a root. So ultimately whatever we've added in the app.js would be here to the index.html through the index.js. So now this is the time to run the file. I'm going here, I'm going to the terminal, and here I'm going to process that npm start. Okay, now I need to wait a few seconds. There is something like official. Oh, okay, I got it. Actually, we're trying it to go official/react. We need to go, first of all, cd master react, because this one is where we have the project. If you notice one thing here, what it is doing, it is first of all checking in the React folder the package.json. However, the package.json file is not in the React, but inside the React folder there is a master React, and inside the master React there is a package.json. So this file was checked firstly, then this file needs to be open, and you can see that no such file or directory. But if there is a file, it would be checking for everything like name, the version, and dependencies, and then scripts, that how we want it to be started. So when we write npm start, that means we are running this command, and this command would run the React scripts start. So ultimately it's gonna start. So go back here, and I'm writing here npm start again in the master React folder. Now all I need to wait a few seconds, so it would run the server, so we would be able to access the application to the browser. So just wait a few seconds. Now compiled successfully. If I look for the previous codes, this is what I written, the React scripts start, and absolutely this is what I written actually, and then I got it and starting the development server, and then compiled successfully. And then you can now view the master React in a browser. So there is a browser link. I need to go to the browser. It is automatically opened in my browser right now, so I'm gonna go check there. Here in a browser you can see that this is a JSX. Okay, so this is not HTML ultimately, but it is similar to HTML. We're gonna talk about the JSX too, so just look. This is how a simple React application works. So in the next lecture we're going to talk about the JSX and other things. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video we're going to talk about this JSX. Any JS programmer who understands the JavaScript knows that JavaScript doesn't understand the HTML. HTML considered the strings in the JavaScript. But how the HTML, the JavaScript can understand if I write something like h1. Now, do you know that if it is the heading, okay, if it would be the plain HTML, this should be the heading, but here in the React, how it can be the heading? They should be plain, because the JavaScript doesn't understand the HTML tags or the attribute. So here we are in the browser and we are getting some other problem, and I think we made some mistake. Let me double check that. Okay, one more limitation, and that limitation is kind of cool. I need to copy, or I need to just make another div, and this div should be the main div. In the JSX you need to put everything inside the main div. Okay, cool. Now there is no complication, everything is fine. I'm going back to the browser. Now here we can see that this is the JSX, and Okay, this was a div and this is the heading. If I open the inspect element, and I'm gonna see that, or I can also open the view source by Control U, and here is the view source. You can see that. Okay, there are some text which is coming from the index.html file, and here you need to enable JavaScript to run this app. Okay, and there is some other text, but what is coming from the other page? Okay, this root is coming from the other page because it's the JavaScript. We need to go here to see the texting in the inspect element. So this is the div, main div, this is the div, this is the h1. We must need to add this div, a main div, and everything of the HTML, actually the JSX, should be inside this main div or the main tag anyway. So now you can see that it is understanding, the JS is understanding this heading, the h1 tag, or any other tag you would add. This is why, because it understands the JSX, and this is the JSX. Okay, what if you do not write this in this way? Then what you would be able to do, I'm going to show you the other part. If you do not choose to go the JSX, you can, this is not necessary for you to use the JSX. You can go with the plain HTML way, and in case if you go with that way, what you need to do is something different. I'm just making it silent, everything of it, I'm making it silent, and here I'm making another return. Okay, now because this is not the JSX, so it doesn't need the brackets, the parentheses, I'm directly writing it in the HTML way. So first of all, I need to actually write the React dot create element. Now this is coming from the React application, absolutely. So the React and create element, and here I'm making the parentheses, and inside the parentheses, first of all, I'm telling what the tag name should be. It should be h1, and here I'm adding a comma, and here the content, for example, heading. Saving it, now going to the browser back. I need to add some attribute too. I'm going back there. For example, I'm adding here, this is a way to add the attribute, and here I'm adding the value for the attribute, for example, title, and then the value of this attribute. Anyway, if you even do not put the title, you just add the attribute sign, and now you're gonna see the result. So I'm going to the browser back, and here is the result. You can see that the heading is now visible. If you refresh the page, you would see that very well. I'm refreshing that page, but I'm not gonna get anything from here, so I'm deleting. I'm canceling that, and here you can see that this is here the h1 and heading. So now I'm going back to the code panel. So if we choose not to go with the JSX, this is the way to create the elements in the React. This is a way to do templating, because in the JS we just cannot write the HTML, and if we use the HTML with the string, so it would not be the coding, it would be something like, you know, just placing some rendered text. Anyway, to add the variable, the attribute, there is a way. I'm writing title, and then here I'm adding some data. This is the heading. Okay, now once you write it like that, it's gonna be processed, and you would be able to see that in the browser screen. So I'm going there. Here you can see that I didn't even refresh the page, but you can see that in a title here, heading, and once I hover the mouse over there, you can see that this is the heading. Okay, I did a mistake. I thought I changed that. I think I didn't save the changing. Okay, the change is here anyway. Okay, this is the heading, and everything is actually fine. We've got it, the title here. So this is the way to write the content, write the HTML in the React JS file, the component file, if you choose not to go with the JSX. But if you want to make something similar like that with the JS, there is a way. All you need is just to write it in this unique way. Return, and here the parentheses, and I'm going here inside And first of all, the div, and then inside the div I'm gonna write the h1, the plain, just like we do things in the HTML. It's a lot look like the HTML title, and we're adding the double quotes exactly like we do in the HTML. And here this is the heading, and here we're writing heading, but I'm gonna make a little change so we would not be confused if we're getting some flashbacks of this one. So I'm writing here heading, and like that. JSX style, or let's type method. Save. Now I'm going back to the browser. Here you're able to see that here it is. If you just open this one, you would be able to see the div, and then here h1, and this is the heading JSX method. So now I think this way is best and easy, so we should go with the JSX method for the further. Now in the next lecture we're going to talk some more about the JSX. I was just comparing that why to choose the JSX and why not. So I guess now we just understood how to do this and why to do this. So in the next video we're going to talk a lot more. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video we're going to talk about the JSX again, but by now we're going to discuss about some attributes. So for example, you want to add the ID to any tag in the JSX. What you need to do, all you need to go somewhere like here, and I'm making a new p tag, just an example, and I'm adding some content like this is the paragraph, and I'm saving it, and I'm going to here and I'm adding any space, and now I can add the class, but there is a rule we have to follow. Most of the tags are similar, the attributes I mean are similar as we use them in the general HTML. For example, the title is equal as we do the title in the HTML, so we are doing almost the same, but here I'm adding after the title. If I'm adding the ID, I'm gonna use the same way like here, and here I'm writing para1. Okay, now if I'm gonna make a new another paragraph, and here I'm going inside and I'm writing something like this is second paragraph. Okay, right here I'm adding class name, n is capital, and here I'm writing para2, but this para2 is a class. Now you can notice the difference. For the class, we just cannot use the CLASS. We have to use the camel style, number one, the camel style, and we have to use the class and the name, the class name. And you can see that the n is capital, okay, the class name. In the same way, one more attribute where we have to use something like, for example, we use the when we make a div like that, div, and I'm going here, and I'm going inside and I'm writing label, and here I'm writing some data like that, some data, and here I'm going down and I'm writing an input. This is the very general HTML I'm doing, but why I'm telling this, I'm gonna tell you. Here I make an ID, and here in the ID I'm writing input 1, and here name, for example, input 1. Now absolutely I'm gonna call the for attribute here to connect the label with the input. This is what we do generally, but here we cannot just use the for, we have to use the HTML for. This F should be deleted. Now HTML4, this is the way we use here, input 1. Okay, now I think you now understood that the class name, we just cannot use the class, we have to use the class name. We cannot use the for, we have to use the HTML4. And saving, there is something wrong, I can feel. Okay, the problem is because it is not the HTML, so here we have to add the ending tags for almost every tag. We cannot use the empty tag as the way they are. Now it is perfect. Now if I go to the browser, first I need to run the npm, first I need to go to the master react and line break. Now I'm inside the master react. Once I'm in, now I can run the npm start, and it's absolutely gonna start it. So it can take a few seconds. Okay, it's here right now. So once you click here, you can see that you're automatically inside here. But if you click somewhere else, you're not in. But if you click at the label, you're into the input tag, because the fourth attribute actually connects to the input, and both has the input one as a value. So now it's working. But here as we just understood that we need to call the HTML4, and that works perfectly. Now I'm going to the coding panel, which is right here. Now for the other attributes, we do not need to be worried about this thing. We can use simple ways, like if you want to give the width to any attribute, any tag, you can give it like that, 500, and I'm writing something like hello world. Spelling must be clear. Anyway, I should not save it every time because it's gonna process and send the new update to the server. So this thing, okay, it's not taking time a lot. I'm just saving and it's processing. If you notice this thing, when I save it, it just gives the new result to the server. So that's how awesome. Anyway, here I'm writing something like text after with dth. I'm just doing this because I just want to check the value. I just want to check the width is actually working. Okay, nothing is visible there. Actually, there are two things I'm doing. Number one, I'm not using the the width tag. Actually, I'm using the width tag. Number one, we was not actually watching the width. We was looking for the height. So there's one thing. The other thing is the height should not be applied to the div tag anyway. It should be on the img tag or etc. But at least the variables are working. Now in the next video, we will be talking about how we can apply the style to any div. Actually, we're not going to talk about this style by now. We would be talking, but not by now. But we're going to talk how we can apply the style in the same in the same app.js page, the same file. So let's meet in the next video. Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about the CSS, but it would be the inline CSS. However, we won't write that inline, but it would be the inline CSS. So what we are gonna do, we are gonna do something very interesting. Actually, we are going outside of the return. Here we are first of all creating a variable like var, and here the styles. This is a variable name. It can be anything. Sorry, not necessarily the style, but anything you can add here outside of the style or something. Okay, then equal sign, and then the curly braces, and I'm going inside the curly braces, and here they're having some problem. They're having the problem that the it compiled with the warning that the styles is assigned a value but never used. So we should not have the unused variables. That's very cool that it compiled it with the warning. So if I go a little up, so the server is ultimately not running at this point because it got a warning that we have this issue. Anyway, so what more we need to do is, first of all, I'm deleting that, going down a little right here. So how to write the styles inside this style. So there is a unique way. If you want to add the color, you can add the color like that. The value of the color should be in single or double quotes. So I'm adding the value right here like blue and adding a comma and going down. Now if I'm gonna use something which has two words here, so I have to use the camel style again. For example, the font size. Okay, and here I'm gonna add the value for the font size. I'm gonna write the 30. Okay, I'm not gonna put this 30px, just the 30, and it would behave like an integer. Okay, so if I need to add another value, I need to add a comma right there, and I need to go down, and I can add some more values. You can use almost every CSS property here, but you should maintain one thing, that if the property has single word, then it should be in all small letters. If it has two words, then instead of using the hyphen between the two values, we should follow this way, that the first word's first letter must be small, the second word's first letter must be capital, the camel style, the font style, and one more we should apply by here, the background color. You need to be very careful about the case sensitivity. If you're using the B small, C capital, so you just cannot use this O as capital, it would be an error. Anyway, here I'm adding some value, and the value I'm adding right here is something orange, and I do not need to add a comma again because I do not want to add more values. Here I was adding the values, so I have added the comma, not here, because this is the last one. Okay, now I need to apply these styles somewhere. I should write these styles one because I can have more styles. Now I'm applying these styles here to the heading. Okay, I'm gonna apply this to the heading. Now style attribute, and the way of an attribute like that. And now I'm gonna use one more technique, and I'm gonna teach you that technique later, the curly braces. And inside the curly braces, as you know, that we can apply the JavaScript expression. So I'm using the style one. Actually, I need to update the spelling style, and here this should not be the styles but style one. So style one right here. And one more little issue, that because we are using it as the JS expression, so we just cannot use the double quotes here. So the style are directly applied like that. Style one is here, and this variable has an object which has data like the color, blue, and etc like that. These properties are actually the CSS properties. The CSS object of the JavaScript is actually active here. Now I need to go to the browser to check the result, and here is the browser. You can see that the heading is blue colored, and the background is the orange, and the font size is big. If I check this in the inspect element, so all I need to go here, and I am able to see the font size is 30, the background color is orange, and the color is blue. So I think we can now understand here. If I see even here that the color style, color blue, font size, you can see that the font size is not in the same way as it was. The font size is, you can see that it has hyphen, so it's definitely compiled. The JSS compiler made it the font hyphen size instead of the camel style of font size. Then the 30, and then the background color is working in the same mode. So if I just press Ctrl and U, I should see this in a different scenario, and here you can see that is still no sign of any texting because it is JavaScript, so it's client side. Anyway, this is awesome. A few things while working on these styles. You need to know that the camel style should not be very surprising for you, because if you're coming from the JS background, you must know that in the DOM, when we work with the JS DOM, the style object does the same. So it's actually using the JS style object for the sake of the CSS, so it is all fine. It's absolutely the JS style where we do like that. Anyway, the second important thing is here, as we use the font size and we put it to 30, so you do not need to be very careful, or you do not need to be worried about the PX, because the React will automatically make it the PX. It's again the JavaScript stuff, so it's fine. You should not need to add the double quotes and the PX here. You just leave it as the integer, it would work fine. So anyway, these are the points you should know when working with these styles, and try more and more styles on different elements, and I hope you would not be bored. Now we're going to talk about why this curly braces worked here. So in the next video we're going to talk about this. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about something more. We're going to discuss how we can use the JS expressions. For example, if you add something here like another variable and you're writing var1 as a variable name and you're putting some value to that variable, and here like the hello world. Okay, this is a variable we just have made. Now this is a variable we've made in this function, the app function. We should not make this outside of that anyway. Now in the return we have to add this thing, the var. One more thing I just want to clear when we are talking about the return, there are parentheses, but we are not using these parentheses. This is a parentheses. We are not using these parentheses for the return. These are the parentheses because when we're writing the JSX and we have to go with more than one line. For example, this is a single line, then another line, then third line. So if we have a single line, we don't need to use these parentheses. But if we have multiple lines, so we have to use these parentheses for this purpose of the multiple lines in the JSX. So anyway, I was just telling that this is not related to return. Now the second thing, because this is the JSX which we write inside the return, I'm coming here and I'm writing something like here, and I'm writing, this is the second paragraph, and I'm going down and making another P, and here I'm directly calling the curly braces and I'm calling the var1 we just have made, and now we do not need to do any more thing. This variable will be here automatically. I'm going to the browser back, and here you're able to see I'm closing that anyway, and okay, the hello world, this hello world was never been there, but now it is. So that's absolutely coming from this P, the var1. Now this is a single scenario, the string, but what if we have something like var2, now here 5, and then here the plus sign and the 7, and here if we call this variable somewhere, oh, I didn't add the equal sign. Now that's awesome. Now all I need is to just place it right here or anywhere I want, the var2, and now I'm adding any space between those two expressions. Or I can do one more thing. Instead of different expressions, I can go with the same one, the plus sign and the var2. Okay. Anyway, now I'm going to the browser back, refreshing the page. Oh, I do not need to refresh because I got the result automatically. The 12 is here, so it is working correctly. That's awesome. Now I'm going back to the general code. What if I go to the next P tag, and here if I write something like 6 multiplied by 8, now I'm not even making the variable, I'm even doing some mathematical operations of the general JS inside the JSX. This is, we can call actually using the JavaScript expressions. I'm going to the browser, and here you can see that the 6 multiplied by 8 equal to 48. So we've got the result here. Even you can make the ternary operations. The ternary operation is ultimately the shorthand of the if and else. So I'm doing that right here. So here I'm opening the curly braces and I'm going here and I'm writing things like the var2. Here is a var2. Or let's make things easier. Instead of this one, I'm making another var3 equal to 19. Okay. Now, oh sorry, it should be var3, otherwise I would be confused a lot. And here I'm telling if var3 is equal to 19 question mark, here true, if not then false. Okay. Oh, I'm still getting something wrong. Well, it should be working. It's not the runtime error, it's the error was produced by the Visual Studio Code. The Visual Studio Code actually created that because of the ESLint, and ESLint is requiring us to put the 3 equal to signs. That means the strict with the value 2. Anyway, if we go to the browser, we should get it right. So I'm going that, and here you can see that the true is the result. But if we change that true into the false, if I added the 29 and saving it again, and okay, for now, for the sake of the, now it's looking fine. I need to go to the browser to check if it's actually working in this way. Here in a browser you can see that we've got false now, not the true anymore, because that was not true. So yeah, it's working. In the same direction, you can use something different, like here, like that. Now it should be true, because now we're telling that the word 3 is not equal to 19, so it should be true now. So you can do something like this or that. These are the basic signs of the ternary, or you can say if and else. So in the next video we're going to talk some more about the React.js and the JSX. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about the React JSX again. One more thing which was left, and I think that's very important, so we're going to talk about that. And that thing is the events. So let's talk about that. We don't have any events by now, but how we can create the events. If you know the JS, you know how to create an event. All you need is to create some kind of button or some kind of the tag where you want to apply the event. So for example, you want to apply an event, but what if we make what we want to do on that specific event first, so you would get the clue how we can do this in a better way. First of all, we have to be within the app function here, because this is what we're exporting. As you know, right here you can see that we're exporting the app, so we have to be inside that app. And right here I'm making a new variable over here, var, and in the variable I'm writing func1 equals to, now here I'm going to create a function inside this variable. Now first of all you need to write the function, and then func1, whatever you want you can write here, and then the parentheses, and then the curly braces. Now I'm going inside the curly braces, and right here I'm gonna write something. For example, I'm going with the console.log, and in that way I'm writing here some kind of function. Okay, that's awesome. Now what more, I need to call this func1 somewhere, and where I'm gonna call that, I need to go down, and here I'm making, or what about making it at the very bottom. So right here, but we have to be inside the very main div. So right here I'm making this new function, the new button. I'm applying the event on a button. That's very simple. Here I'm writing click me. Okay, and here I'm adding in space and adding the event now on click. Okay, now what is the meaning of the on click? This is actually the way to define the events here, like on mouse over and everything just like that. If you remember, if you're, as you know, you're coming from the JS background, so you know the JS DOM. So this is how we call the events in the DOM. So this is exactly same like that. On mouse click, on click, on mouse hover, etc. So we actually go with the camel style here again, and we use on first. Anyway, here what I'm doing, I'm deleting that because I'm going to use the JS expression here, and we're going to call the func1. We do not need to mention the parentheses here, because ultimately we've saved that inside the func1 variable. So all we need is to go to the browser, and I'm gonna go there. So right here, when I right click, I'm not gonna click on it by now. I'm gonna open the inspect element and going to the console right here, and I'm clicking to the button. And when I click the button, you can see that here some kind of function. I'm refreshing the page so you would be able to see that again. When I click on this button, you can see that there is nothing, but when I click here, I'm getting some kind of function. When I click there again, I'm getting, this is second time. That means this event worked. So this is the way to add the events in the JSX. So this is not necessary that you need to add the same event every time. I'm gonna shuffle it with a different one in a different button. And also this is not necessary that you have to use the button. You can use anything. Click me to, and here I'm going on mouse. Now you can see that there are a lot of much on mouse down or on key press. You can add like that, on mouse up, on mouse over, on mouse enter. I'm going with the on mouse enter. So here I'm again using the same function. Or what if we make another one, so at least we won't get confused. Func2 equal to function func1 parentheses curly braces and inside console.log, and here inside I'm writing some new kind of function. Okay, saving it now. Oh, it should not be func1, it should be func2. Okay, spelling is also now right. Now it is fine. Now I can go to the browser to check. I think still we're okay. I need to add this sign, and now it's having problem. Okay, I got it. Here I didn't assign that func2, so I'm assigning that here. Okay, and now saving it. Now I need to go to the browser back. Okay, I'm right here. When I click on this button, so it clicks. When I enter the button, you can see that whenever I'm not clicking, I'm just entering to this button and I'm getting, you can see that it's 3 times. Now when I enter again, it is 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, like that. And when I just hover this, it's now working. When I click it like that, like that, now some kind of function, now hover this, some kind of function, click again, now more commands, now some new kind of function. So this is how different kind of events you can apply, and you can attach any function with them, and in those functions you can do a lot of things. The whole JavaScript is available for you to do anything. So in the next video we're going to talk some more. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video we're going to talk about the React again, but now I'm going to discuss something different. I'm going to discuss how we can make it in standalone React file, a single file actually, which can make everything which a React file, a complete folder of the React actually can do. For example, here if you make anything in the master React folder, what we did, we first of all downloaded the React. Here in the node modules we use the npm, the node package manager. Then we got a few folders from the node package manager. So there's a main folder, the index.html, then the manifestation, and then the source files like the css, the App Css, and the index css, and then the js again, and etc, the package files. So we have a lot of files here. But can we also make a standalone file which can do everything a React file can do? Yes, we can make that. We need to go with the CDNs. In that case, here we have everything, the packages in our system. It is preferred, but still you can do that. So I just want to teach you that way too. So first of all, we need to make a new file inside the master React file, the folder, and the file name can be single react file.html. It's gonna be the HTML because when we are loading things with the HTML, HTML is a rendering language, and JavaScript can be embedded with the HTML easily. So we need to make the HTML format. Anyway, HTML and like that, and I'm going inside, and here the head, and here the body, and in the head I'm adding something like title, and in the title I'm adding something like the single file has all the things. Okay, and in the body I'm going here inside and I'm writing something like the p tag first, and in the p tag I'm writing this is React JS 2. Wow. Okay, now what more we need? We have nothing like the React, so we first of all need to go to the browser and need to get the CDN file. So I'm going to do that. But before that, what about watching this file over the browser? Yeah, for sure, that should be done too. Here it is. This is React JS 2. The single file has all the things. We're not going with the localhost, so you can see that the E and the official React and the master React, I mean the file, actually the file physical address, which is even not physical, but absolutely this is a file address, not the server address, because we're not going with the server by now. So we need to go to the browser, to the specific here, the specific React website, and we need to get the CDNs. So I'm gonna get that. The docs get started. Here is the CDN links. You can see that the React and then the React again. There are two things you can see, that the React development and React DOM development, and then the versions are meant for development and not suitable for productions. Minified and optimized production versions of React are available at here. So we do not need those versions because we do not want to make it a production version. We're absolutely going with the development by now. So I'm copying this and pasting it right here inside that. Okay, I do not need a script tag. I already have copied them like that. And saving it. Okay, what more I need by now is start coding for the React. So it's coming from the unpackaging. Okay, not bad. React DOM. Okay, they're actually targeting the versions too, but okay, it's not bad if you're targeting the versions anyway. Now I think we need the Babel too, so we would get that, but by now I'm gonna code it again. Script. Okay, and I'm going here, right here. Before that, I should do one more thing. ID change. Okay. Now here in the script area, I'm doing some more things. And those things are actually const. And I'm writing here data. Okay. Equal to, I'm going with the ECMA6 version methods. We discussed about that. H1 this, or okay, this is some heading. Anyway, if you're still in shock that why we can apply the JavaScript, so you should not be very shocking because the HTML here, so you should not be very shocking because it is not the plain HTML, it is JSX again. Okay, so I'm making it the div tag or div because it doesn't suit. We overlap the H1 with the P. I do not know why, but I do not like it. Anyway, I'm going down in here. I'm actually using the React DOM right here, and React DOM dot render, and okay, and right here the parentheses. I'm going inside. This is what you already know anyway. Data. Okay, and I'm going to the document. This is a general way. Document dot get element by ID. This is what you know when you work with the HTML very well. So here change. Okay, and now what more I need to do is I need to go to the browser to check the result here. Saving it. Now I'm going to the browser. So here it is. I'm refreshing that and it's not getting changed. So I need the Babel too. So I'm going to the browser, the coding panel back. And right before the script tag, the React, I'm here applying the src, and here I'm writing https unpkg.com/@babel/standalone/babel.js. One more thing required here. I need to delete this M. Now unpackage. Okay, and here I need to mention it. The type text slash. Okay, previously you used to write text slash JavaScript, but it's not the case right here. We need to write the text slash Babel. But it also needs a few changes. For example, first of all, we need to add the sign here, and we do not need anything here. Comma here. If I go right here, you can see that we add the comma. We are actually inside this parentheses, and inside this parentheses we add the what we are exporting. We are rendering the exported element, which is a component. Okay, and then we are placing this component with this element, which is actually the part of the JavaScript. So here we are supposingly inside this line, inside this command, the rendering area. So we just need to write the data. This is our component, okay, and this is where we are placing the component. So first of all, we need to end the statement of this. One more thing I need to change. The DOM is also capital. Okay, now all looks fine. Now I can go to the browser to check this. Then we would talk about how it's working anyway. Here we can see that it was the another text, but after refreshing it changed. I'm refreshing it again. You can see that first it was this is React 2, but later it became this is some heading. If I go to the right here, clicking on the inspect element, and here you can see that in the console. Okay, download the React Dev tools for a better development experience, and you might need to use a local HTTP server instead of the file. Okay, they're recommending that we need the local server. Okay, I need instead of the file. We are going with the file, but I just wanted to show you how it works. Also, they're telling that you're using the in-browser Babel transformer. Be sure to pre-compile your scripts for babel.js production. Okay, so everything is fine. Here is the element area. We can see that this is the ID, the div change, and inside this we had some other data and we updated it with the h1, and this is submitting. So this is how it updates. When I refresh the page again, I would get something different, and then it get updated because of the React. Once React loaded, it changed the thing. We need to know one more thing, that why it's taking a few seconds, because this is React, and absolutely this is not only React, but it is coming through online sources. Okay, this is not something like JavaScript which is pre-built in the browser. This is something we are importing from the outside. So this is why it takes time. First, browser reads things, it starts from the top. So first it reads the h1 and etc, then it starts reading these things, then the script, and then after reading everything, it changes this area. Now here what is happening, this is a kind of the very simple component. Okay, this is a kind of very simple component. We're going to discuss about the component in the next video. So the component, or the component, whatever you say, it is something very important in the React. Everything after React consists of a component. Even this app.js is a component too. This is a component. I'm going to discuss about that later, no problem. I'm going to the file we made here. Okay, and then here, this is what we added in the index.js, the render area, and this is something we call the component. And here, because this is a function, so we are returning something, but here we are not running a function, we are just simply adding the JSX here. So we are receiving the JSX data right here in the component. Okay, so what is another important thing? Nothing big here, but we do not need the CDNs if we go with the the master React, the npm way. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the components or the components in detail. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about the components. So, to make a component, what you need to write things like that. Here we have some JSX. I'm deleting that JSX because I do not want it anymore, because I want to make this component look easier for you. So there are a lot of things we have done with the now save it. Here I'm deleting that too because we do not need that. Okay, this is a very simple function, and this function has nothing big, just two elements. Now this is a component, the very basic form of the component. You can see that the function, then here is the app, and there is a return. We're returning these things to the function. One more thing, that if we write something a single line here. We do not need this parentheses. We can write it right here. For example, the P, and here we can write something like hello world. Okay, this is now, so this would actually work if you have something more than that, more than a single line. So you may need to use the parentheses. This is not the rule of the return. Return doesn't need these things. If you're writing the JSX, you need to follow this structure. If you're writing something multiple linear, so you have to follow this structure. Anyway, I'm going to the browser. I'm going to the terminal first. I'm going to the terminal right here, and I'm running the code. Okay, so I'm gonna run the local server. Now I need to write the npm start, so it's gonna load the server. And okay, I'm having some problems in it. Oh, it says okay, I got it. Actually, I'm in the React folder, and I need to go. React is the main folder. This is the main React folder. We need to go inside that folder first. So cd master React. This is the subfolder we have inside the React. Okay, now we are in the master React, and now the npm start. Okay, now it's gonna run, and you're gonna get that. Okay, React script start, and the master React and etc. It's processing, and we're gonna get the server run. Now it started the development server. Actually, it's starting, and it's gonna be in the browser, and now it's live. Now you can now view the master React in the browser. Now here is a link, and absolutely this link is already opened in my browser. So I even do not need to click on this link because it's there already. So you can see that it was right here. Okay, you can see that the return is working, the hello world is working. But if you want to add something multi-linear, so you need to add the parentheses. It is a rule of the JSX to make the multi-linear content. So I'm doing that right now like that. P hello from the other side. Saving. Now going back to the browser. I'm doing something wrong. Okay, one more thing I forgot, that when you're going with the multi-linear JSX, you need something like that. So I need to add all the content inside this, the other one, like that. Okay, and a tablet. So now it's multilinear, and it's absolutely gonna work. Here in the browser you can see that. So anyways, what more we need is to understand the functional and the class component. There are two kind of components, the functional and the class components. This is absolutely a functional component. You can see that a function. So what's the basic difference between them? A functional component is absolutely similar to the function of the JavaScript. It is just like a function. Okay, so you can receive the arguments here, which are called props in the React anyway. So you can receive the props here, which are called the arguments in the JavaScript. Anyway, arguments, parameters, etc. So you can receive those things right here in the app. And then here you can just use that in the JSX. So anyway, the class is a little different. The class has more features, additional features, a little more coding, but you need to know both. So what I'm doing, I'm making a new file here. I'm writing the new file like that, and I'm writing, for example, class com dot cls dot js. Okay, I do not need the app.css like the class cls.com.js.css file, because I'm not gonna design the CSS of this element, and I do not need the index.js file for the a new index.js file for the cls.com.js. This is another component I'm making, and I'm going to use this component in the same index.js file. So I'm going to the clscom.js. So the very first thing we need is to import the React as we did here. So I'm importing the React import, and in the same manner, yes, no, not this way. It is a little different. We simply need to write the React from React, and then we will be able to use the React from React. Okay, as you can see that this is what we did here. So what more we need is something, show fixes. What are the fixes? Okay, they're telling that React is declared but not used yet. Anyway, I'm going down, and right here I'm going to use that. So here you need to write the class. First of all, if you're coming from the background where you would be able to use the classes, the OOP, so you might know about these things because JavaScript doesn't know about it a lot. Now the TypeScript, the superset of JavaScript, knows about the classes, but by default JavaScript doesn't know that. Even in the TypeScript, if you add some classes, so it would be converted through a compiler. The classes would be converted through a compiler, and we get the result in the functions ultimately. But when we make the classes, we get more features in it. Now we are adding the class. In here we just simply written the function, but there we are going with the class, and we need to name the class. So what the name I'm adding here, it can be anything. For example, just for the test, CLSCOM. Okay, one thing we take care of, you can see that this is the APP.js, so the component name was APP, the functional component name. So here this is clscom.js, so the component name is clscom.js. clscom only, we do not need to mention the JS here. Anyway, then extends. Okay, so now we need to write the component. Now here you need to add the curly braces, and now you can go inside and you can now do a lot of things inside this class. This is actually a component you've made, and now here you need to write the render, and here you need to write this like that, and then you need to just do like that and another curly braces, and inside that I'm gonna return things, and whatever you want to return you can write here. For example, what you was returning right here, you was returning something like hello world, or the hello world from the other side, so I can return the same thing. Now I know you're gonna ask me the difference between them. I would be telling you, no problem. The div, and here anything like h2 hello, and here h2 or whatever hello from, I do not know what I just written there exactly from the other side. Okay, now to render this, we've made it. To render this we need to go to the index.js, and as we did right here, we need to call the React DOM again dot render, and like that here I'm writing clscom and the slash, and okay, I know I'm doing a little mistake, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna tell you that get element by id, okay, like that. And here we need to write the another object from this public. This is where we are showing the index.html. So this was the root element. Now after the root element I can add the div again, and here we are writing something like id clscom, whatever. I just can call that there, and here the first mistake was it is React and it is React DOM, and here the element name was anything but it is clscom. But now the second problem is the clscom is not defined in the index.js. Who knows from where it is coming? We've assigned that to the index.html, but we do not still know that from where it is coming. So here it is coming from the clscom.js. So I'm going here and right here I need to line break and I'm writing import, and now what we are importing, first we need to export that. Sorry, let me export first. Okay, now here, first of all, as we exported it here, so we need to export it right here, export, and I'm not gonna make this as default because the default is already something. So clscom, and this is what we are exporting. Okay, so this is not a default component, so we can delete that. And to export something which is not a default component, you just can do like that. Right before the class you can write the export. Now the default default component can be any one from all of the components of each project. So this is the app.js and this is ultimately the default component, the app component. It can be a functional component or the class component, any of them. So now we are exporting this class component. So because we are exporting it, now we are able to receive that in the index.js. Okay, we have just added it here, but I'm now going there and right here I'm importing because I've exported it. Importing. One thing I just want to clear that we're going to talk about the import and export later too, because it's a detailed chapter, but by now I'm just teaching you about the class component anyway. So here the import, and I'm writing the clscom from where I'm going to import it, /clscom. So I'm adding the semicolon here. Now I've imported this class. If you noticed right here, attempted import error, clscom doesn't not contain a default export imported as clscom. Okay, so it is telling that we have to go with the unique thing. It is not a default export, it is not a default class. So what we need to import it in this way. Now save it. What is the meaning of this way? Actually, this is a default component. So we didn't need to import a part of it. This is not a default component. So this class com.js can have multiple components. Okay, so default components can be called openly, but here from the class com we can import multiple things like the class com or any other elements with the comma, so we can do that too. So we do not need to, wait a minute, okay, all good. Yeah, we do not exactly need to put the curly braces right here, but here. Anyway, now I'm gonna go to the browser to see the result. Here it is, the updated save. Okay, now I'm going to the browser. You can see that the bold hello and the hello from the other side, the small one. So this is coming from the second component. If I go here and if I make some changes, hello from the class component, okay, and save it now, and I'm gonna go to the browser back. So you can see that hello from the class component, hello from the other side. Okay, so these things are actually coming from this class component. So you can see that it actually worked similar for this time, but it has more features. The class component has more features. It can have constructor functions. You can have more logics here. But here it is a simple function. If you do not want a life cycle of the component, you do not need to use the class component, but a functional component. The benefits of the functional component is pretty simple. It is actually like a JavaScript thing. You need to write function, and for the props, which are actually the arguments in the JavaScript, you just need to fill out this area and you need to write the JSX, and yeah, you're on. But the class component actually extends things from the React.component, and here we make it like a class, then we render the class, and inside the rendering we put the return. So it has more features, but the render is not only the function, it can have the constructor function, the life cycles, and many things. We're going to talk about that later. So by now we just needed to know how we can exactly create the class components and how we can export multiple components. So in the next video, we're going to talk about some more. Till then, hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about the props, which are also called the arguments in general JavaScript. So how to use it? The props are some kind of taking arguments, taking input and giving the result, just like we do in the JavaScript, as I told you, but here it is a little different. Anyway, when you're talking about the functional component, it works differently. Actually, it doesn't work differently, but the placing of code for both of the things are different. Let's talk about how we can use the props in the functional components. So first of all, we need to go here to the index.js, and where is the functional component? Absolutely, this one is a functional component by now, so I'm going right here and I'm adding any space, or already there is any space, so no need to add that. We just need to write the attribute name here. Yes, it is actually simple. You need to add the attribute, and that attribute would be the data you are sending to the function. Anyway, here I'm writing something like data content data, okay, equal to, and here I'm adding like some data, okay, and I'm going to the app.js, and here I need to receive that data, okay. Here I'm sending the data. So actually I'm not ultimately sending the data, but just suppose that I'm sending, because I'm sending the data from the app.js, so I would tell you that no problem. I'm going to the app.js again, and here I need to get the data from the index.js. I'm writing props, okay, and here after writing the props right here, I need to go down right here or anywhere I want to add the content, for example right here, or a new one. I'm adding a new P, and here I'm writing some props are here. Okay, so I need to add the curly braces, and I'm going inside the curly braces, and I need to write the props dot. Now what was the variable, the attribute name? The attribute name was content data here, content data. So I need to use that data, saving it. Now the props dot content data. Now I need to go to the browser to see if it's working, and here it is. You can see that some props are here and it is some data. If I change the some data into something different, like I'm writing here in the index.js, I'm writing something from the props, saving. Now going back to the browser, you can see that some data are here, some data from the props. Okay, now what is actually happening here is something. When we are rendering the app here, we are actually importing everything from the app.js to the index.js. Okay, same like that, you are importing the CLS com here. So we are importing both of them, and here when we are receiving the data, we are in the index.js. Once we are importing everything, we are assigning some new data in the form of attribute, which are called JSX attributes. So when I do this, I save some data in the attribute form, and ultimately I assign that attribute with the tag, which is actually the component. So when I do this, whatever the attribute I've used here would be in here in the form of the props, like that. So when I just call this, it cannot be called right here. So when I call this, ultimately this data got connected with this one, and we get the result, the sum data from the props. Anyway, now actually you can make something dynamic with the props. And how? I'm actually going down and writing React DOM again dot render, and everything just like that, app content data, and like that. In here I'm writing, okay, comma, and here, come on, document dot get element by ID, and here I'm adding the root, okay. Instead of the root, I'm gonna go to the index.html. Well, this is not a unique way. There are more ways we would be talking about, but because to understand these things properly, we need to understand the importing and exporting, nesting of the documents, the components into each other. So we will talk about that later. Data 2. And now I need to go to the index.js, and here I'm gonna call the data 2 and saving it. And absolutely here I'm assigning some other data. For example, actually I'm writing the same thing, some other data changed from previous props. Saving it. Now going to the browser back, and here at the browser you can see that the hello world from the other side, some props are here, some data from the props. Hello world, hello from the other side, some props are here, some other data changed from the previous props. Now hello from the class component, hello from the other side. Okay, so this is how we can put the data using the props in the functional component. We're not discussing about the class component by now. For sure we're going to talk about that later. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about the props again, but by now we're going to talk how we can use the props in the class component like this one. We know that to use the props in the app.js, where we use the functional component, is very simple. Like we are passing some argument. Here we are passing an argument, and here we are using that, and there we are sending the data. So it is simple. But for the class components, when we have no option to add the argument here because it's a class, so how we do this? It is simple too. So first of all we need to set some data which we want to send. For example, this is a class com. So here I'm adding in a space, and I'm typing something like, for example, class data. This is a new variable I'm making the attribute I'm making actually. So here I'm adding something, for example, some data from the class component and saving it, and now I'm now able to receive this class data. But because it is not the app, it is not the functional component, so we directly need to go wherever we want to use it. For example, here I'm making the P, and here I'm writing this is the data we are getting from the props in class component. Okay, and here now, because we even didn't call the props inside, but absolutely we are using it, we just need to call this keyword point, and then the props, and then the point, and then that some data which was actually the class data here. So need to type the class data. Okay, now we can see the browser for this thing. Now I'm going here and I'm running the npm start. Oh, first of all we need to go in the cdn. Okay, and cd and the master react. We need to go to the master react folder first, and then now here we can run the npm start. Now the line break, and it's processing. Okay, you can see that the script is getting run. Save it. Now all I need is to wait for the server to run. It's all built now. Now we can see the browser, and it is here. You can see that this is the data we are getting from the props in the class component. Oh, actually this is what we just written. So I need to go back and see what I've missed. And yes, I missed the A at the very end. The A. Now save it again. And if we look back here, this is the data we are getting from the props in the class component. Some data from the class component. This is actually the data we are receiving. Some data from the class component. So that means now we are able to use the props in the class component too. I'm gonna add some more props. I'm gonna make it dynamic too. So I need to go to the app.js and the class com. Okay, I understand. I'm gonna actually go here, and I'm gonna make another attribute. We even can make multiple attributes in the functional components and the class components too. So there I'm making another component, and that component is something like new component. This is not necessarily we need to write the same what I'm writing. This is just a way I'm doing things. You can choose your own way. Some new component data. Now I'm saving it, and now I'm gonna go to the class component, and now here I can go to the next line and I can write it like that, and some new data here, and again the curly braces, and inside the curly braces this dot props dot new component, and saving it. Now need to go to the browser back, need to refresh the page. Actually, when we were working with the React, we did not even need to refresh the page, because once we reload the server by saving the things, it refresh itself. Okay, you can see that some new component data, which is actually the new part. So that sounds we are actually now understanding how the props works. We're going to talk more and more, but in the next video. Until then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video, we're going to talk about one more interesting thing when it comes to the props. Again, we're talking about the props, but we are using the props from the attributes in the index.js. Means we're actually rendering through the React DOM. Okay, one more thing I want to clear, that here we're also rendering, but it's not the React DOM, it's a general component. This is the DOM, means here we are actually sending the data to the document, and here we are rendering it. Okay, so there's a very tiny difference between this render and that render anyway. So you can see that here we are importing the React and React DOM too, and here we are only importing the React. So I think this point is clear. Anyway, the next point we want to talk about is, you can see that we are picking the data from the attributes, but we can do one more thing. There are some limitations when we are talking about the JSX. For example, we must have to close the tag, so we cannot just leave it like that. However, if this is, for example, we are using some input tag, even here, if we are making this p, we just cannot use this input tag like that. Okay, we have to close it by this way, or I'm deleting that, and I can do one more thing. I can add any space and this like that. Okay, so now this is acceptable. That means you just cannot leave it as blank as it can be, as we do. For example, if you're going with the br tag, so we have to do like that, otherwise it won't work perfectly. This is a rule. So same rule goes for the index.js, where we are actually sending the data, the attributes. Now, but we can go with this way or that way too, like that. You can see that. This is also acceptable. This class the class component, the class data, some data from the class component, and another attribute, some new component data. And here the ending tag. Now, between those tags, we are even allowed to add some text. This is another kind of props. This is called the children props. I'm sending some data like some data from the middle, or I can say from the children. Okay, now this is not an attribute. This is the data we were sending. This some new component data we were sending through the attribute in the JSX, but this is not the attribute. This is something we are actually writing inside the tag, the class component tag. So to receive this kind of data in the class component, I'm talking about the class component by now, not the functional component. However, we can receive the children data to the both of the components. But now talk about the class component. So for example, here we want to receive the data. So what was that? We was using this class component. Okay, so I'm writing the children data, and all we need to do is to write first of all this dot props, again the props, but now we're not going to mention the attribute because that was not the attribute. We're going to mention the children. That's awesome. That's simple. That's cool. I'm going to the browser now. Here you're able to see the children data, some data from the children. So this is the data actually coming from the children. If, for example, let's make some changes in it, I'm going to the index.js file. Here is the data, some data from the children. I'm writing some data from the other children and saving it. Now I can go to the browser by now. Here you can see that the children data, some data from the other children. This is what the change we've made previously. So now that's awesome. What more we need? I'm going back to the panel. So that's, I think, perfect. Now I'm gonna do some changes in the app2, the functional. So now this one, I'm going with the first one because I have used the app multiple times. This is not a very great way, but we can do this, so we did it. But I'm going to tell you another ways to make the components reusable. So anyway, first of all, I'm deleting that. This should be deleted. Okay, now I need to end this up with the same wording. And here I'm adding some data. For example, here I'm sending data like some data from functional component. Some here I'm mentioning some children data from the functional component. Now I'm going to the app.js because here I need to receive that data. First of all, where you want to receive the data, I'm going right here and the p tag here, and like that I'm going inside and I'm writing something like some the children, the children data of functional component. Okay, awesome. Now what more I need? I again need the curly braces, but here we do not need to use the this. This is actually belongs to the class in the React. We need to call the props because we are absolutely receiving the props in the the common, the general JavaScript way. So this is the JavaScripting. Anyway, I'm gonna tell you one more thing, that whenever you are able to use the functions, you should use that because it is easy and it's predictable. It is predictable. So you should use the functional components. The class components becomes unpredictable many times when you apply a lot of code. So unless you need things, you should not use the class component. That's not very recommended. Anyways, there are many things which only class component can do, and we're going to talk about them too later. Anyway, here dot children, and I need to save that, and I'm going to the browser back. Here I need to refresh the page. I did it, and I'm going to get the I did not even need to refresh the page because it automatically get refreshed. And here the children data of the functional component. So we are getting nothing right here. We need to go back to check what wrong we did. We did nothing wrong ultimately. The props are children's here. Okay, we closed it rightly. So some children data. I think there is something I missed. Here you can see that I'm using the app 2 times, and in the only one I added there's some children data, not the second one. So I need to go back to the browser to double check what I did. And here, yes, I was right, because you can see that the children data of functional component, there is nothing, but here the children data of functional component, some children data from functional component. This is we're getting from the index.js for this app.js file. And all this text is actually not the part of the first time using of the app component in the index.js file. The second one, this one is the second one where we didn't apply that. We applied on the first time only. So now I think we got it, and in the next video we're going to talk about some more things. Till then, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. So now in this video we're going to talk how components behaves when we nest them into each other, and what's the reason behind making the components. Okay, for example, here we have some pages. For example, you can see that the app.js, and we can have multiple pages like that, the class comp, and absolutely we are able to use them appropriately. But the talk of the table is why we have multiple pages, multiple components. It's not like having multiple pages, it's like having multiple components. So what is a component actually? In the React, everything of in a browser we see everything, every piece of the content we see in the browser comes from a component ultimately. So each component can be any part of a page. So in a single page you can have, so how we can actually use the benefit of the components, it is very simple. For example, we have this app.js as a main component, so no problem. We can use the class component inside the app.js component and the app.js component inside the class components. That's another thing. This way is not very efficient if we actually render the component again and again, but yeah, it's not bad. But the way I did here, I had to make change in the public index.html file. That's why I call it not efficient, because this is not a good way to make any change in the index.html file. So I had to make two more divs, which is not good, because we should not even do anything in index.html unless we need it very well, because by now we can get the class component data and anything we want in the app.js, the same component. So I'm going here again, and what I'm doing is simply here adding a line break. Okay, so now first of all, as we imported the class component data, first of all we've actually exported that, and then we've imported it in the index.js file. Here you can see that the class component. Now we need to get this importing in the app.js file. So first of all, I'm going here to import that class component. So import, and what we were actually importing, now here we need to use this way, and from where I'm gonna import it from the / and class com. Okay, that's not bad, but the thing is, why I added this curly braces, we already discussed about it. This is the default application we are exporting, but here we are exporting the class. We are not exporting the default thing. So maybe we can have multiple classes in a single component. We would talk about that later too. So because we are exporting this specific class, so we need to mention that we are importing what? We are importing the class com from the /class com. Ultimately it's .js, but we do not need to mention that. Now here, wherever we want to use the data of the class com, we need to use it by the way we want. So here I'm calling this, sorry, this is not the way we use it. We actually use this in this way, class com, and saving it, and now this is awesome. Now because we just called the class comp here, at the top of the class comp I'm mentioning something like h2, and here we are writing the nested class component starts from here. Also you can see that here is an error, because this shouldn't be here. Okay, the problem is this is not the plain HTML, this is the JSX, which is similar to HTML. So we can do this in the HTML and it would be shown in the browser, but here it is actually considered as the part of the programming, so we just cannot add the greater than here. If we want to use the greater than or less than signs, we have to use the entities for those purposes. Anyway, I'm now going to the browser, and you can see that it becoming lengthier. Here it starts from here. Actually the nested class component, it starts from here. hello from the class component, hello from the other side, and etc. And then again right here you can see that the nested class component start from here, hello from the class component, hello from the other side, this is the data of etc. So why we're getting the class component starts from here 2 times? Because we call the app component 2 times in the index.js. And here you can see that the hello from the class component showing in the normal way. Now there are 2 things you can also notice. Some new data here, the children data, both things are empty here. Here also some new data, the children data, but at the very end some new data here, new component data. The children data, some data from the other children, and also you can see that from the props in class component, some data from the class component. There is no some data from the class component, there are no some data from the class component. So why it is there, why it's not there in the nested components? Things very simple. I'm going to the browser, to the code panel to make you understand it, but it's very easy. So right here, if I go to the index.js, okay, so this is the some data from the class component, some new data, and some data from the other children. These things we are sending along with the class component in the class component of the cls.com class component in the index.js file. Okay, so in the app.js, we do not want debugging or anything right now. Anyway, so here this is a class the class component. So what is happening here? We are here calling the class component again, but we are not sending anything. If we talk about these 2 pages now, the class component.js and the app.js, so here we are using this.props.new component, this.props.children, this.props.class data. Now I'm not talking about the index.js anymore, I'm talking about the app.js. So these things we called as a properties or the props you can say, but when I go to the app.js, in the app.js we are not actually calling that data when we are calling this. So if you want to show those data, you have to make new variables here like new data or etc. Okay, first of all, before doing that, you can see that we got the duplication of the data, so we do not need to call the app 2 times. I'm deleting that. That's awesome. Also, we do not need to call the class component multiple times or any component. In the index.js, we are actually calling only one app. We are rendering through the DOM. We are sending only one component to the DOM, and in that component, instead of calling or rendering multiple components in the index.js, we are rendering them in the app.js and only placing the app.js right here. So I'm deleting that too. I think the concept is much clearer now, and I'm saving it, and now I'm going back to the app.js. Sorry, first I need to clear the mess from the index.js, so we do not need those things. I'm deleting that like that and saving it. Now you can see that this is the id root. Only this id root is actually good, and we are having some problem. Okay, they're telling that in the index.js it got some error. It's telling that the class comp is defined but never used. Okay, that's awesome, because we are not using this class comp, so we should delete that from here. Now it is awesome. So save it again, and now it should be fine. Now we just made the component here, and we are just calling the component here. So here we're calling this component, and here what we just did here, the .props.new component. So the new component is actually not the children, it's the attribute. So first attribute was the class data. So I'm going here, and first of all, now I'm using things like the class data equal to now some props data from the from the class component in the app component, saving it. Now going to the browser. Here I can see that oh, I should not be in the need of refreshing the page anyway. Okay, I got it. I've got it. You know, the nested class component, it starts from here. So this is the data we are getting from the props in the class component. This is data we're getting from the props in the class component. Some props data from the class components in the app component. So now there we've got it. But you can see that there's some new data here and the children data is empty by now, because here in the class com.js we don't have the data for the this.props.new component, this.props.children. So I'm going back to the app.js. Now I can actually use it as a reusable component. I can even call those data here, or I can make some other ones here like that, the P. Okay, and anyways, it's also not a very good practice to use the same component at the same page, but I'm just doing that, and I'm gonna show you how bad it is. So here I'm using this 2 times. In the first time I'm using it as a empty tag, but in the next one I'm using the both starting and the ending tag, and here I'm adding some data like the children data, and here I'm adding the next thing. I'm going here, and here the second one is a new component. So the new component equal to some new component data. Now I'm again telling you that using reusable components is a feature of the React, but this is not a very good practice to use the same component multiple times unless we actually need it. Now you're going to see the problems we are going to face because we used the same component 2 times in the same page. I'm going back to the browser. Reload is already done. Okay, you can see that the nested class component, it starts from here. Hello from the class component, hello from the class component. There are 2 times we just call the CLS.com, the class component. Now this is the data we're getting from the props in the class component, some props data from the class component in the app component. Okay, then we've got nothing for the 2 others, but the second time, because we added the data, some new data here, some new component, the children data, the children data. This is we actually written in the calling of the component second time. So this is absolutely bad. So this is the best solution is to use any component inside another component or nesting single times or multiple times unless we need that. In the next video, we're going to tell you a possible case in which case you can use the same component multiple times in another component. We need to see if the condition is possible or no. So we're going to discuss that in the next video because this time we've had enough. So take care. Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about the possible ways we can reuse the component in the another component multiple times. So for this purpose, first of all, we're not going to use the class component. We're going to use another component. We're going to make another component. So in the src folder, I'm making the new file. For example, I'm making it detailed or like person. No, not the person, but like that. Details.js. Okay, details component. Okay, now I'm writing import, and the very first thing we need to import is, if I go to the app.js, you can see that the React from React. So React from React. Okay, that's awesome. Now we need to use that, and how we can use that? We can use both the class component or we can use the functional component. I'm going with the functional component by now. Function, or let's go with the class. Awesome. Class. Because after all, we need to learn that. We already know about the functions in the JavaScript, but the class is something new for us. So the more we practice the classes, the more it is good. And one thing we did a little wrong. I'm not saving it and I'm even deleting that. And what wrong I did, oh sorry, I even do not need to delete that. I just needed to rename it and need to make the D as capital, and I'm deleting the S, the detail.js. The D should be capital because we are going to use it in the way. So I'm going down and here I'm writing the class and the name of the class, which is detail. Now extend react.component. This should be extends. Okay, now that's awesome. Now I'm going here. The curly braces right here. I'm going inside and I'm calling the render function. And I'm going inside, and inside the render function, what I'm returning is something which can have multiple lines. So I'm going here, and first of all I need to add the div like that. That's awesome. Now I can go inside, and inside, or I think I should use the single line, or let's go with the multiple lines, but that's not even necessary because what I just want to place here is not multiple linear. This is what I just wanted to teach you, that I think I should go with the single line, because what I just want to show you should be single linear P, and here I'm writing, sorry, it should not be capital P at all, small p. Now here I'm writing, I have a laptop with 8 GB RAM, 1 TB hard drive, okay, and Core i7 processor. Okay, that's something, a class we've made. It is single linear and it is beneficial. I'm going here and I'm writing export, adding in a space because we are going to export it. And absolutely, we can do one more thing. We can call this class, the component in the class com or the app.js directly. If we call this detail component in the class com component, so because we are calling the class component in the app.js, so ultimately wherever we are calling the detail.js, the detail.js will be placed in the class in the app.js. But there is a problem here because we called the class component multiple times. So ultimately this would be in the app.js at least 2 times. So because of this thing, so now we're directly calling the detail.js. We would be talking about the thing calling the detail.js inside the class com. So by now I'm deleting the class component, or let's just leave it by now. Okay, I'm coming here and I'm opening another P. Anyway, I do not need the P by now because it is already coming with a P. The P tag here, you can see that, the paragraph tag. So we do not need to put these things inside a P. I'm going here and I'm directly calling the detail and like that, and I'm saving it. And now I'm going to the browser. Oh, okay, got it. I need to first import that, and I'm doing that import, and again the same method from, and here /detail, and I'm saving it like that, and here I'm importing the detail component from the detail.js file. All is awesome. I need to go to the browser to check if it's working fine. Here the nested class component. Okay, here you can see that I have a laptop with 8 GB RAM, 1 TB hard drive, Core i7 processor. Okay, so that's awesome. We've got it. Now I need to go to the browser back. I meant the coding panel back anyway. So now, for example, here we need to get some data, some specific data, space and some data. For example, RAM equal to 4 GB. Okay, space HDD, whatever you say, 500 GB, and processor core i3, saving it. Now I can go to the detail.js page, and here 8 GB RAM. This should not be like that, but like that. The RAM 1 TB, instead of the 1 TB it should be HDD, and I'm doing a little things a little wrong. I'm gonna cover things up because what I'm missing, because I'm sending things as a prop, so this dot props dot processor. So this is how I'm accessing. I need to double check the spelling of the processor. Okay, the spelling of the processor is PROSESSOR, processor, and here this dot props dot HDD, now the RAM, this dot props dot RAM, saving it, and it is absolutely fine. This is props dot rams, this is props dot HDD, this is props, this dot props dot processor. Now here you can see that in the detail we are actually receiving all of the data we're importing from the detail.js through this way. And here once I'm receiving the detail, so we are adding some details like RAM, HDD, and processor using the properties way. So we call the properties as props. So here you can see that this dot props dot RAM, this dot props dot HDD, and this dot props dot processor. One thing, if I was using the functional component, so I was not able to use this. I just needed to call the props. You know that already. Like we did with the app.js, here we just call the props. Anyway, now I'm going to the browser back. You're now able to see this is 500 GB, this is 4 GB RAM, this is Core i3 processor. Now there is a reason for duplicate that. There was no reason to duplicate this because it has multiple data and we was making things collapsed and distracted and destroyed. So here I'm calling the detail again, detail, and now here I can call the RAM again and equal to 8 GB, and here HDD, and here so the 750 GB here, and the processor Core i5. Now I need to save and I need to go to the browser. Here I'm getting some error, and that's a very cool thing because I can actually see where the problem is actually happening. So at the line number 17, it's telling that there is something wrong. Oh, this is actually indicating a wrong point. Anyway, here this should be like that, and now this should not have any problem. I can see the browser now. Here you can see that I have a laptop with 4 GB RAM, 500 GB hard drive, and Core i3 processor. And there I have a laptop with 8 GB RAM, 750 GB hard drive, and Core i5 processor. Now that's awesome. Now I'm gonna add some more things in it. Now I'm going down here and I'm adding the details again, detail. So I'm not gonna call the RAM first, I'm calling the HDD first. I just wanted to show you things with a different perspective. So 1 TB, okay, and here I'm calling the RAM like that, the 16 GB, and the processor Core i7, and then close it like that. Okay, that's awesome. Now I need to go to the browser to check back. Here you're able to see I have a laptop with 16 GB RAM, 1 TB hard drive, Core i7 processor. So that's awesome. Now I can go back. So this is a reason of using multiple times calling of a component in another component. I think that's awesome. Now you can understand that the calling of this class component is no use because here we have a lot of data in this class component. So this should be called a single time, and this should be called in a different manner. For example, we should not call this thing the children data here. So if somewhere we don't have the data, at least we won't get this area as blanked. I mean, I'm gonna go to the browser back. Here, at this point, I'm getting this some new data here. So we do not know what is the data and the children data. We do not know the data. Here's the data, but another attribute data, the children data is there, but another attribute data is not there. But here this is mentioned that this is the data we're getting from the props in class component, and here we are doing the same, and we are actually getting the data, some props data from the class component in the app component. That's awesome, and that's bad, because if we don't type this, at least we won't see the error. So I'm gonna solve this thing. Here in the component, I'm deleting that. Okay, all things deleted, and here I'm doing the same. That is a good way, unless we need it. Sometimes we have to call this, so we know that we're using this component and how we're retrieving the data. So that's simple that it is. So now we at least won't get the error. And second thing, we should not call this multiple times unless we need it, so I'm deleting that. And now here, if we go to the class the class component, we have the new component and the class data. And here in the app, we're only calling the class data, we're not calling the new component, but at least we're not gonna get the problem. I'm going to the browser back. Here you can see that hello from the class component, hello from the other side, some props data in the class component in the app component. So we are not getting something which was not here as the error. So that's awesome. One more thing I'm gonna talk is, what if we use this detail.js file in the class component? So first of all, absolutely we need to import that. Import, and the way is similar. Now here the dot and the slash and the detail and like that, and here I'm going and I'm writing detail and saving it, and absolutely now I'm gonna use it somewhere. Directly gonna call it detail and like that, and I'm saving it. Now I'm going back to the browser. So here it is. You can see that I have a laptop with RAM, hard drive, and processor. Now at least we're not getting an error, because we didn't mention that there's something we're gonna add as the attribute. So if we don't have the attribute, we're not getting the error, but we're able to add that. Like if I go here and I add something like the RAM, I'm only adding the RAM here, space 32 GB. I'm not adding other data. I just wanted to show you the possibility of things. Now you can see that I have a 4 GB laptop. I have a laptop with 4 GB RAM, 500 GB hard drive and Core i3 processor, and some other clauses like that. And here I have a laptop with 32 GB RAM, hard drive, and processor. So this is the same thing coming from the class component, and this is we placed directly. And now you know what is the possibility of using a class component or any kind of component multiple times in the same another component. Other than that, we was actually able to use this class com multiple times, but that was not suitable. It was not getting suited. So now we understood the possibilities. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the structural nesting, that how nesting is more beneficial for a web page. Hello and welcome back. So guys, in this video, we're going to talk about these states. There are a few factors when we're talking about these states. We need to know that these states are something which we only can create and use in the class type components. We just cannot use them in the functions component because they are stateless. So we just cannot use that here. Now, what are these states? First of all, for example, here I'm going to open the detail.js, and here are some data, and when we are going to the browser, let's just go to the browser anyway. So we would see the result on time, npm start, and here again the same problem, the cd master react. Oh, sorry, I made a line. Okay, now master react, and okay, now I'm in the master react. Now the npm start. Now need to wait a little bit, so it's gonna run the server. Now it's live. You can see that these are the results we are getting from the detail.js file. Now I'm gonna do some changes in it. As you can see that this function is this app component is a functional component, so we cannot use the state in the functional component. Anyway, I want to clear one more thing, that because of the latest version of the React introduced the React hooks, and we can use the React hooks for this purpose to use the functional components just like the class components. But by now we're not going to talk about that. When we will be talking about the React hooks, we would talk about how we can use the functional components accordingly. But by now we're just going as it is. So by now we are using the states in the class components. So there is a CLS com. We used the CLS com in the detail page. Anyway, I'm gonna do something here. So here we are sending the RAM value along when we are calling the detail component here. We can use a variable here too. And by now I'm doing the same like var1, and here I'm adding some value. I'm typing here 64 GB. Okay, this is a variable we've made, and now instead of the 32 GB plain value, I'm using the variable which is var1. Okay, now I can save it. Now I can go to the browser to see the result. I'm going there, and here at the browser I have a laptop with 64 GB RAM, hard drive and processor. Okay, that means it's working. Now I'm going back. This is something we can do in the functional components too, but what's a special thing when we're talking about the states? Actually, we are able to change the states while the component got loaded. So that's the great thing of the state. Now I'm gonna go with the states method because this method is not very impressive anyway. This is just something we can use anywhere. So what is the point of using states? To declare the state, we need to type the state keyword right here. Okay, now first thing first, we need to know that a state is not something we are writing, or actually we are creating. It is a reserved word, and we are able to assign some value to it using the JavaScript method like the object. And inside that we can put anything like laptops, because we can be talking about multiple laptops. Anyway, laptops like that. And then how the object works, I'm opening these square brackets and I'm going inside, and for the each value or each data set, I'm opening the curly braces again, and the first thing I'm typing here the RAM. Okay, and I'm adding some value like I'm writing here the value for the RAM is 32 GB. Okay, I can write something different like 64128 GB. Okay, just to make sure that we are actually getting something new. We are also able to put some more data like adding a comma. We are ultimately not using any other thing here, but now we can use that. If I go to the detail.js, we are receiving the RAMs, HDD and processor, so we can use the HDD and the processor too. So I'm adding a comma like that, and here I'm adding the value for the HDD. I'm adding here something like 2 TB and adding another comma in processor. Okay, processor, and here in the processor area I'm writing core i7 and just okay. Now I'm going down. I also can make multiple clauses here like that. I'm again typing RAM, and the value for the RAM I'm adding as 512 or 256 GB and a comma and HDD, and here I'm writing 1.5. sorry, I even can add integers here, but I'm not going with the integer by now because that's not necessary. Adding a comma and processor, and like that core i5, and I can add some more data if we want. So I'm adding another one, the RAM, and here 512 GB and adding a comma and HDD, and here I'm writing 5 TB, adding a comma again, processor, and here core i3, and saving it. And now all I need is to do one thing because it's JavaScript, so I need to add a comma here and I need to add a comma here. So now I actually collected the data. Now I am able to use it whenever and wherever I want in the return area in the JSX. So actually not in the JSX specifically, because we can use this state for the details data. So now I can delete that and I can add the curly braces again. But now accessing the state data is quite simple. So to access the data, all we need this dot state dot. Now in this state, what we're talking about the laptops. Now after the laptops, I actually want to access which data set? The 0, if you know the JavaScript and you know the object setup in the JavaScript, so you must know that the indexing starts with the 0 in most of the programming languages anyway. So this is 0 and this is 1 and that's 2. So which data you want to apply right here? You might want to apply the data set number 2, which is index 1. So I'm going here and I'm writing something like right here and I'm writing 1. Now I'm inside the data set index 1, which is the number 2, but index 1 because the number 1 is index 0. Okay, so data set index 1. And now which thing I want to call here? I specifically want to call the RAM because I'm in the RAM area. So now all I need is to type the RAM, whatever we just written here, because now we are in this index now. So we want to call the RAM, or we want to call the HDD, or we want to call the processor. We need to call things accordingly. Now the third thing we need to do is to save it and need to check in a browser. So I'm saving it now. I need to go to the browser and I'm getting some kind of issue now. Right here and at the line. Oh, okay, I got it. Actually, this should not be inside the renderer. It's not a simple variable. We need to call this here. And now that's okay. We're not rendering everything of the state. We are rendering some data of the state inside here. So now I'm saving it. Now I need to go to the browser. Now here you can see that I have a laptop with 256 GB RAM. So here, what more I need? I need to go right here and adding in space. And if I want to add the other data like the HDD and the HDD and the processor, so I can call this HDD, this processor there. I'm going here and I'm writing HDD and equal to, and here I'm adding accordingly this dot state dot laptops, and here I'm writing 1 dot HDD and same like that here. Be careful that maybe sometime when you're writing the code you start adding the other data inside the curly braces, which is not an appropriate thing. It won't work. So I got myself out of the curly brace and now I'm writing it outside the processor. I'm telling these things because these are the possibilities, because when I was learning programming, these was the mistakes I did. The small mistakes you think, the bigger they are in reality. So be careful of small mistakes anyway. The state dot laptops. Sometimes we see things and we think that actually we are doing everything fine, but because we was mainly focusing on big things like we have data, we have variables, but sometimes we did a very simple mistakes like, I did everything right, but I added a simple space here, which is not appropriate thing. It should not be there, so I deleted that. So for example, instead of this sign, you by mistake added a comma, so you got stuck, or you just use the S as capital. So these are the problems I'm just showing you that we can do anyway. So I know you're not gonna mistake like you type the here 4 or you type something different, but you can add in space here, or you can just miss the point like that, the period, you can say the period of the point or anything. I was just telling you some scenarios which are possible. So now I'm going to the browser back. Now here I have a laptop with 256 GB RAM. 1.5 TB hard drive, Core i5 processor. I'm going back, and one more thing I can do here, that if, for example, you want to show something different, or you have a different set, like you have 256 GB RAM but Core i7 processor, so you can do things like that. You can call here the processor from the zero. Now, just showing you a possibility. This is not a very recommended way, because later you can get confused of this kind of data set, because when you have a data set you should follow that, but it can be done like that, 1 and 0. Now we're gonna see the Core i7 as a processor, but everything like the index 1. I'm going to the browser, I'm refreshing the page. Oh, sorry, do not need to refresh the page anyway. Okay, now you can see that the Core i7 processor, 1.5 TB hard drive and 256 GB RAM. Now another important thing is I am going down and I'm opening the details again, just to show you that we at least can have the other data. So the RAM, and here like that, this dot state dot laptop, and here the two I'm calling the RAM and the HDD. Then this is not necessary, you know, that we can call the processor first. I'm just writing so you might have no problem or confusions in your mind. That what I'm doing here. I'm writing 1 for the purpose dot HDD, and I need to cover that, and I'm needing space in the processor. Okay, it is like that. And here this dot state dot laptops, and here I'm writing 2. Okay, end dot processor. Okay, what I want to show you here, you can see that I'm using the 2, but here I'm using the 1. What's the meaning? Actually, I have used the laptops 1, the first index HDD already, right above of the new one. You can see that here we're using this dot laptop 1 HDD, and I'm using that, so we can reuse any value of the state multiple times whenever we need that, as I did here. This is 2, this is 2, this was 0, this was 1, but this is 1 and this is 1 again, so it should work. I'm going to the browser. You can see that the RAMs are different, the processors are different, but the hard drive are similar. One more thing, when we're talking about these data sets, I'm adding a comma, and I'm writing desktops. You can do like that too. I mean, having multiple data sets. So here, because I'm talking about the desktop, so now what new I can add here? Let's just add the RAMs first. RAM, I'm adding here like 32 GB. Okay, I'm incrementing the GC, the graphic card, and here I'm writing something like 4 GB of the graphic card, and a comma, and the processor, and here I'm writing Core i3. Okay, whatever. Now HDD 1 TB. Okay, now I was just trying to show you that we can have multiple data sets too, like I did here. And again, if I want to call something from the desktop, so all I need is to change it to the desktop. But there is a single problem, that we're not receiving the GC in the detail.js. So here I'm adding a comma. The GC is, and here just to show you how we can use multiple data sets. The processors, sorry, not the processors, but the GC, and I'm saving it. Let me make it small anyway. Props and GC, and I'm going to the class com, and here I'm writing GC in small because this is good. Anyway, it is fine, and now I can go here. And for the first one, I'm adding one more data, GC equal to, and the data I'm assigning here is this dot state dot desktop. Now which data of the desktop? Absolutely the 0, because we just added the single data, which absolutely has the index as 0. Now .gc and saving. Now I'm going to the browser. I did some problem somewhere. Oh, okay. This should not be like that. This should be like that. I was just getting the problem like that. One more tiny issue. This should be solved too, and now it is solved. Now saving it again and everything is fine. I'm going to the browser back and I've got a detailed problem. Okay, let me double check. The good thing in the React is they actually shows us the errors. So you can see that actually here in this line we are getting some error in the class com.render, and the error is I just made the desktop spelling as a little wrong. So let me recover that. Now here the desktop spelling should be DESK, and now it should be fine anyway. Thank God I just saw that. Saving it, and now okay. Let me double check if I did anything more as wrong. Oh, it's still the problem. Again in the same line, that means I'm again missing something. Let me double check. Actually, I've written here the desktop and it was desktops right here. So, man, the debugging sometimes sucks, but yes, it's necessary. Also, you need to be very careful because it has only one index, so this has to be 0. It can't be 1 or 2 or anything because we don't have the indexes for that. Now I hope I won't get the problem. Anyway, the more problem I get, actually I was able to cut these parts off from the video, but I'm just making these parts in the video because I just want you to show that even these kind of problems comes and your project can stuck. So you need to know that this is also possible and you need to fix things to make it run instead of just getting panicked. Now here we've got it. I have a laptop with 32 GB RAM, and here the GC is 4 GB, and the GC is nothing because we didn't have the GC for the bottom one. And you can see that the core, the hard drives and etc, everything is actually fine. So now I think we are able to proceed to the next. We are going to talk about how we can update these states in the next video. Till then, stay tuned.